I want to start off by giving you a little bit of personal background on myself so you can understand a little bit about how I came to be invited to speak to your group. My name is David Darbyshire, and I graduated from Lawrence Tech back in 1987. I received my mechanical engineering degree from here. It took me about 5 years to get through the school. I don't know if that's the average time that it takes for most people, but for me, I had to retake a few extra classes and kind of claw my way through the program. My family background is my dad earned his mechanical degree from the original Lawrence Tech campus back in Highland Park in 1954, and he came back to the Southfield campus right around when it first opened up in 1963, and he earned his electrical engineering degree. I'm from a family of 11 kids. My oldest brother, Robert, he attended Lawrence Tech from 1976 till 1980, where he earned his mechanical engineering degree. My second oldest brother, Eddie, Leonard, my younger brother, Rick, it took him 10 years to get out of the school, also earned his mechanical engineering degree. And my sister, Louise, ended up getting her mechanical engineering degree in 2001. So you could almost say that with the 6 brothers and sisters that attended Lawrence Tech getting their mechanical engineering degree, we're kind of brainwashed into how good this school is. Unfortunately, 2 of my other sisters, Gretchen and Audrey, they went to that other engineering school up in Flint. And a lot of times when we get the family together, there's a lot of conflict that exists as to which school is better as far as the engineering program and what type of organization produces better engineers. But at the end of the day, you know, there's going to be a few things that I'm going to say throughout this presentation that I hope you'll walk away with. And the most important thing that you need to understand with when you earn your mechanical engineering degree from Lawrence Tech, it is a very, very powerful piece of paper that you now have. Because when you think back about it, how many people were enrolled in your Calc 1 class? And how many people were enrolled in your differential equations class? How many people started Lawrence Tech in the mechanical engineering program and never finished versus the few of you that will actually get your engineering degree? Now, like many of you, when I earned my engineering degree, or the whole time that I was going to school, working part-time, I failed a couple classes, had to retake the classes again, I always had this fantasy about what I was going to do when I got done with school. I always thought that I was going to get a job with a big company like GM, Ford, Chrysler, somebody like that, and I was going to design a Mustang, a Cobra, you know, something really cool because we're an automotive town. When I started interviewing to get that first job, I found out that I wasn't the smartest person in my graduating class. In fact, my GPA was only a 2.51. And when I went to Ford Motor Company to try to get an interview, I wasn't even invited to the table. And I thought to myself, well, this is terrible. You know, here I worked so hard to get this engineering degree, and they're not even going to let me design door hinges on an Escort. You know, I wasn't qualified for anything. And I started panicking a little bit. And you could almost say that that's kind of like a situation that a lot of people that are graduating right now are facing, is you're about ready to enter into the field of engineering, and I heard one of the people in the group start talking about their senior project of doing a little bit of aeronautical engineering. That's pretty cool. You know, a mechanical engineer can do a little bit of aeronautical. That makes sense. Some of you may do another senior project that's going to be involved with medical devices. Somebody else is doing the Formula SAE car. You know, there's all sorts of things that you can apply your engineering skills to. And the slides that you're seeing up on the screen right now are kind of a sampling of the type of companies that my company, DASI Solutions, is involved with. But let's back up a little bit. When I graduated from Lawrence Tech and I found out that I wasn't going to get the dream job that I always wanted, I kind of was forced to kind of like take any job that was given to me. And the first job that I got out of college was with a blueprinting company. And if you're familiar with blueprints, this is, I graduated, like I said, in 1987, a long time ago, when an engineer used to draw something that was manually done. If they were lucky, they had access to a CAD system. And when the job got near completion, they needed to share their ideas, and you'd run a photocopy of the print and hand it out. And I know this may sound rudimentary, but that's the way we used to do things back then. My dad learned how to do math with a slide rule back when he was going to engineering college. And that same slide rule put a man on the moon. You know, well, now we're putting robotic devices on Mars using CAD systems. So generational, there's a little bit of differences. But back to the story here. When I took the job with the blueprint company, they hired me with the intended purpose of going out into the marketplace, researching new technologies, and trying to start a business around it. And the first thing that this company did with me is they put me on a plane and they sent me to a trade show in Philadelphia. And then they put me in a car and I went to a trade show down at Cobo Hall. And all I would do is I'd walk around these trade shows looking at new computer systems, new coordinate measurement machinery, different things, tools that an engineer would use. And I would bring it back to this company that owned the blueprinting company and say, this looks like a good business to start. And we could make X amount of money if we did this. And the company basically said to me, well, sounds good, but before we invest a couple $100,000 in this idea, I can't take your word for it that these are good ideas. And so what they asked me to do is they asked me to write business plans. Now, communication and writing, we really didn't spend a lot of time at Lawrence Tech learning how to do that back when I was in school. I mean, Professor Shamami here, she'd have me, do a stress strain test in the engineering materials lab, and I'd postpone to the last minute to write that report, and I'd barely get it done. And I didn't realize how important it was for me to learn the writing and technical skills that would be later important in my life. And so, kind of was at a little bit of a disadvantage. I started getting into timetables and accurate reporting, but that's okay, because I realized really quickly that my younger brother, Rick, who was also studying school, here at Lawrence Tech, he was smarter than me. He liked to write reports, and he liked to do more of the technical things that I didn't like to do. And quickly I found that by partnering with my brother, that in areas that I was deficient, he excelled. And in areas that I didn't want to do, I didn't want to do things, my brother or employees could be hired to fill in the gaps. And what I didn't realize at the time, back in 1987, 2001, was that I was becoming an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is just a fancy word for someone who gets an idea and tries to figure out how to execute around that idea. And they believe in their idea so much that they're willing to put in their own sweat equity, because that's what we all have, their own cash reserve, because we have a little bit of access to that. And we all have the ability to become motivated. But the problem is that sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes you could have the greatest idea in the world, but nobody's going to buy your product. And that's kind of like what we're faced with in today's economics times. We're running into problems where we have a lot of engineers that are not working, and they need to figure out what should we do next. But that's the fun part about being an entrepreneur. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was invited here today, is to share with you a few things that I learned and some of the things that I hope you guys walk away with here. The first thing I want to say, and I've already said it, is that engineers can do anything they want. That's what my dad said. And when I take a look at his career, he's pretty much done everything. And when I take a look at the company that I have right now today, Decide Solutions, is when you sell an engineering product or represent technologies, you get the opportunity to interact with a lot of different types of companies. And I love that type of thing. Some of the things that I didn't realize that I'd start interacting with is people that are not ethical in nature, or people that don't hold the same values that maybe some of you in this room share. And let me give you my first experience. Remember that blueprint company that I told you that hired me to research new technologies? They hired me to look at ideas and start businesses around those ideas. And at one point in time, this group of people told me, and my brother, that we were business partners, that we had an equity stake in the ventures that we were starting. And this is kind of important. If you ever find yourself in the opportunity to venture with somebody, or enter into a partnership, or to put cash on the table or something like that, do yourself the #1 favor. That is, hire a lawyer to draft the document, and make sure that all the parties are involved sign the document, and that you have a clear understanding of what happens when the partnership ends, or if the company should get sold. I learned the hard way after my first venture was sold that I didn't have a real operating agreement, that I did not have stock in a company that got sold for a lot of money. That's a terrible, terrible experience. Now, I can gladly say that that's my experience. And probably everyone in this room will find yourself in a similar type situation. A lot of people in the mortgage, people that bought houses a few years ago didn't realize what an adjustable rate mortgage was. And they found themselves in over their head and they're losing everything that they owned. All because they didn't take the time to read the documents that they were signing or gain an understanding of what they were getting themselves into. Documents are very important. And having good counsel to help coach you through that process is very, very big. Engineers are changing how they do their business. And back in the 70s, when my brothers graduated from college, a lot of times people did jobs that were known as jobbies. Are you familiar with that term at all? What a jobbie is somebody that would walk into an organization, work on a project for 9 months to a year and a half. When the design project ended, they'd pack up their drawing utensils, their compasses, their protractors, whatever they needed to do their job, and they'd go to the next job. And these jobbies' resumes used to look very, very large. And one of the problems that I have with my company is that we're starting to get back into that mentality again, where nobody has long-term projects or long-term agreements. Nobody's working on a car project that lasts 4 or 5 years. And the projects are getting very short-term, and we're all going to start behaving like jobbies again. And when you guys go out there and you start looking for your job, you almost have to start thinking to yourself as an entrepreneur, as an independent contractor. And that story that I told you about making sure that you have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed is going to become very, very important to you. And what I'd recommend as a book for you to read is a book about verbal contracts and written contracts that is geared towards salespeople. And the name of the book is a book called Protecting Your Commissions. It's written by my lawyer, a guy named Randall Galleri. It's very good reading, and I found that that book has saved me about $100,000. It's interesting. One of the other things I want to share with you as far as like experience as entrepreneurs is, again, working with people and having coworkers and things of that nature. I got some really good advice from my accountant back when I first started my business, Siblings Inc., back in 1991. And that accountant told me to watch the books, watch the finances. You know, don't trust your money with anybody else except for yourself, because it's very, very easy to be taken advantage of. And back when my brother and I were doing the company, we trusted each other to do things the way they were supposed to be done. And our company started to grow. We started adding more employees. And like I told you earlier, there's some jobs that I didn't like to do. And I hired people to do those jobs. And the one job that I didn't like doing was I got tired of invoicing customers. And I also got tired of going to the bank to make deposits. And what I found really quick was that when I got lazy, I started losing a little bit of control of my organization. And again, today's lecture is a little bit about lessons in entrepreneurship and lessons in dealing with other people and running a business. And I had another negative experience happen. I get a phone call from this guy who was dating the girl who was responsible for doing my bank deposits, and he told me that this young lady was selling my company property on eBay. I'm like, they didn't teach me that in engineering school. And I sure as heck didn't learn about eBay back in the 90s, and I didn't know you could do that. I also found out that through direct deposit methodologies that this employee was able to invest in her own bank account about $150,000 worth of my stuff. And I didn't even know it was happening. Now, I'm not a very rich person or anything like that, but I learned really quickly that when you're not actively involved and you don't have proper checks and balances in play, that you can get yourself into a lot of trouble and lose a lot of money in a very, very short period of time. And I think you guys are learning that inside of your senior projects class. You know, you have people on your teams that do a little bit of work and a lot of work. You know, everyone varies to a degree of what they contribute to an organization. And when your team came together, if you allowed somebody early on in the process not to carry their weight, chances are that's the way they behaved through the entire project. Is any of you in the room experiencing that right now? I remember my senior project. My senior project, I told Professor Shimami this story. I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of it. Well, when I was going through senior project, it was a trimester type course, and I found myself in a bad situation with my senior project partners. And in the end, I found myself being assigned to the Formula SAE team because they had a lot of conflict amongst the people that were doing the work versus not doing the work. And luckily I was brought in as a hired gun to bail them out of the situation that they were in, which was they weren't going to make the deadline for the competition that was going to be held in the C lot, or the parking lot over by the management building. And that's when I learned that being a consultant or being a hired gun that can come into a situation and just given a little bit of expertise for a very short period of time is very valuable. And that's kind of the foundation of what my company is involved with today. Is what we do at Decide Solutions is we sell engineering software. We customize it to a given application, and then we train people on how to use it, and then we technically support them after we made the sale. And I have found that the greatest value that my company brings to the table is what I do after the initial sale. You know, the life experiences that I have in saying to an automotive company about how somebody in the aerospace industry is applying our technology. That's a lot of fun. The other thing that is interesting about career pathways and where you find yourself is who you find yourself connecting with in your careers. When I went to Lawrence Tech, studying mechanical engineering, the architects and the engineers never really talked to each other. I mean, it was weird. I mean, they were in their building and we were in our building and we never interacted. And like I told you before, the first job that I found that I had after I graduated, all my customers were architects. Weird. The other thing that I found interesting about my experience at Lawrence Tech is I didn't do a good enough job keeping track of people after I graduated from school. I found that I lost touch of a lot of my friends and things of that nature. And then fast forward 21 years later, I find that as I'm trying to grow my business, all the people that I'm trying to sell to today were my former classmates. And if I would have set the seeds back when I was in college, instead of being, less than professional at times, I might have had a easier career pathway. Remember last month when the person from Lear was in here, nice vice president? I think you guys would like to have that job, wouldn't you? Well, Lear is a customer of mine. And that guy that was giving the speech last month, he was on that Formula SAE team that I was also on. But I haven't seen that guy in 23 years. And I started thinking to myself, I wonder if I could have had a different career or different corporate growth if I would have stayed connected with that person in a different way. Was I strategic in my career pathway and what I was doing in the same manner that I was strategic in my effort to get my engineering degree? In hindsight being 2020, I wish I had that opportunity to do again. But kind of today with new technologies that are out there, we all have the opportunity to have a level playing field. How many of you are involved with LinkedIn? MySpace, Facebook, any of those social media type of things? I have found that to be a great tool for me in my sales organization to reconnect with people that I want to sell to. I've also found it to be a great tool for me to use to screen prospective employees. Because when I go out into a Facebook or a MySpace account and I connect in through a Google search and everything, you would be amazed at some of the things that people post about themselves. Remember how I told you that I was a little bit crazy in college and stuff like that? Well, the good thing the internet wasn't around then. I don't have to worry about anything nasty coming back other than a few speeding tickets that are out there forever. Well, my niece, the other day, she was posting things that I'm sure she doesn't want any prospective employers to ever see. So if there's a second thing that I hope you guys walk out of here today with, and I'm sure you've heard it from many, 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 many sources, is be careful of the foundations that you're laying today and know how you're going to leverage those foundations as you move forward in your career. Those are some of the things that I wanted to talk about. The next thing I want to talk about is an obligation that each of you guys have moving forward to Lawrence Tech in your alma mater. I pulled into the parking lot, the A lot today, and I saw a DeLorean. Does anyone know who owns that DeLorean? Have you ever seen it out there? You guys know who John DeLorean is? Okay, we all know who John DeLorean is. He's probably one of the most famous Lawrence Tech alumni that are out there. You know, he was a great guy. He had a great automotive history. He got his cars into movies, and I think that he's the type of person that we all aspire to become. The person that we don't aspire to become is the guy who John DeLorean ended up being, which was the guy who was selling cocaine to finance his car company. That's a negative story. And we start thinking to ourselves about the people that are sitting around us and even ourselves, and how are we going to represent Lawrence Tech once we leave this university? What type of legacy are we all going to leave behind? And what type of standards are we going to hold ourselves to, so that when we do something great or we do something inadequate, how is it going to reflect back on Lawrence Technological University? For me and my family, we're heavily invested, you know, in the school and the Lawrence Tech degree and what it means to the general community. And at a certain point in time, you're going to get a phone call from somebody asking you to donate money to the school to help finance the new labs and things of that nature. And it's going to be very easy for each of you, or each of us, to say, nah, I don't want to give any money to the school. I already gave them enough in tuitions. I don't owe them anything. But the reality is, and I hope you guys remember this, is that you don't always have to give money. You can give your time. You don't have to always donate wheel rims or software or stuff like that. You can give your time. You can give whatever you feel comfortable. You don't have to give your first 3 years out of college, and you don't have to wait 30 years to make your first donation. But put in the back of your mind that philanthropy is a very important component to this university. And the financial contributions of people that went here back in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s made your experience here at Lawrence Tech just a little bit better than it would have been if the university had to rely 100% on student tuition. And when you get the chance, if you ever get a chance to look at the annual report from Lawrence Tech, it's very interesting to see how little money comes from tuition in the operating of the school, and how much the school has to go after other sources of revenue, be it contributions from old alumni or finding federal grants to do research like we have with the Bridge Project and through TARDEC, TACOM, and things of that nature. Remember that when you are out in the job market 20, 30 years from now and you're looking for that talented person to do the job that you really don't want to do or it's outside of your current skill set, remember hiring from your alma mater is a good thing and it's healthy for everybody. And if you get the opportunity to hire an intern, it's a great thing to happen. Who here is on the Formula SAE team? Anybody? You guys know Sean Bentley? Is he helping you guys out at all?
Yes.
Really good?
Yes.
All right. You know he's one of my employees, correct?
Yes.
He's a great guy. I hired him as an intern. He stuck with me after he graduated. I'm lucky to have him on my team, and I'm glad that he's given back to you guys. If there's anything else you guys need from me, or if you need more of his time, just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to help. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at the May competition. Is there any questions or concerns that you guys may have, or anything that you'd like for me to address from an alumni perspective? How about from an entrepreneur perspective? And what it takes to start a business or anything along those lines.
How did you find your first company, this DASI Solutions?
How did I found my first company?
How did you find it? Yeah.
Actually, what happened was my first company was a company called Siblings. Like I said, when my brother and I found out that we weren't owners of that Blueprint company, we decided to start our own company. And we had like 5 different company names selected, and it turns out all the good names were taken. So my lawyer made up the company name of Siblings. And he spelled it Cybllings. And I thought that was the dumbest name I've ever seen in my life. And my brother and I promised that the first thing that we'd do is change that company name. Well, it's been 20 some odd years later, and we still haven't changed that company name. It's still called Siblings. And what Siblings did is we were involved with robotic systems and engineering services. And in 1995, one of my fraternity brothers from Lawrence Tech, he was selling a CAD system down in Ohio. and he came across the SolidWorks product, and he tried to sell it to me. And I'm like, Todd, nobody uses this SolidWorks. It's brand new. I use a package called AutoCAD. That's the CAD system that I can afford. That's what I run my business on. And Todd said to me, he said, actually, SolidWorks is really good, and if you just give it a chance, you might find you like it. I liked it so much that I decided to start selling the product. And that's how I got into it. My first customer that I landed is still a customer today, is a company called Altair Engineering. They manufacture a very, very high-end finite element analysis package called HyperMesh. And they manufacture, you may have heard about it, they're manufacturing a bus system, and they're into everything. Big engineering firm. How did I land them as a customer? It's the hardest thing in the world. I knocked on their door. I called them up. Got dialogue going. First step of a sales process is bonding rapport. Making sure that the person on the other end of the phone understands that you understand their critical business issue and that you might have a solution that could address that critical business issue. And once you have an understanding of a customer's problem and the customer understands that you have a solution for that, now it's establishing value of that solution. And it's really weird. You know, somebody with cancer would pay every penny in their bank account to save their child's life. Right? And give up their own cancer treatment. So worth is relative, and it's very personal, and it's very emotional. And business decisions a lot of times are made in a very personal and emotional way too. So my decision to give up on my siblings' business and start the SI solution, a lot of emotion and a lot of logic. When it comes to logic, I have down here an outline on how to write a business plan to start a business. So if anybody out there thinks that they might want to be an entrepreneur, this is a 2-page, 8-step program on how to write a business plan, secure funding, and get your ideas off the ground. It's a very nice little takeaway that I have for you guys today. Another takeaway that I have for you today is if anybody in this room would like to have a copy of my SolidWorks software for free, I have an instruction pamphlet on how you can gain access to it. What other questions might you have?
Given the current situation with employment these days, a lot of engineers in our position are turning to smaller companies, but it's kind of hard to find them. What would you recommend to go find smaller companies like you did with the blueprinting company?
Well, the first thing is the network effect. A lot of people that had jobs that lost them are always tempted to take 6 months off and go fishing while they wait for the job to come to them. The best thing to do is to go out and go where engineers and manufacturing companies are. Next week down at Cobo Hall is the Society of Automotive Engineers conference, and I'd have to say about 20% of the companies that are going to be exhibiting there are going to be major companies like the Yazakis, the Arvin Meritors, the Tier 1 companies that are traditional in nature. The rest of the show is going to be a whole bunch of very small companies. And it's kind of funny that, that you mentioned going after the small companies. When I first got out of school, a small company was not a desirable place to go work. And what I found is, in my experience recently, is that the small companies have been the best companies to work for. Because when it came to downsizing, which everyone has to do, big companies just walk in and say, you 500 people on this side of the room, you're displaced and you're gone. It didn't matter if you were the best engineer or the worst engineer. You were just put in the same bundle of 500 and you were let go. The small companies, they value the individual and the individual contribution a lot more. And I have found that, and I'm just going to use fake numbers here, but they're proportionately real, that if you're a salesperson, for example, you have ability to make any amount of money that you want, depending on your effort. And in a small company, a salesperson will make anywhere from $60,000 to $180,000 a year. In a small company that looks like the dumpiest shack you've ever seen in your life. And you could take that same salesperson or a similar type of skill person and put them in a nice glass box building here in Southfield, and they'll make significantly less because the way the money gets divvied up. How do you find companies to work for? Join associations like the Society of Automotive Engineers. If you like the Society of Aeronautical Engineers, there's a society for every type of organization that there is. There's even societies for sales professionals. You know, join one of those societies and become active in it. Take a leadership position with them. Become a member of their board of directors. I currently sit on the board of directors for a group called Automation Alley. If you're familiar with that at all, I have one of their magazines right here that talks about how to do market diversification. In this case, this edition talks about how to enter into the medical device market. And I find this helps serve as a guide for me to find customers. Yes?
When you started your business, your own business, did you know everything was going to work out, or did you have a lot of doubts? Or?
You can't have any doubts. You know, you can't have any doubts at all when you start your own business. I mean, you know, the problem with that starting your own business is the day that you become self-employed, you become unemployable. And the reason is because you get used to making decisions that you are held 100% accountable for. And when my brother and I first started our company, we had $2,000. You know, that's all we had. We had $2,000 and away we went. One of my favorite stories was we got to the point where we had $5,000 in the bank account. And I sent my brother off to a computer auction to buy some computers for the company. Instead of coming back with a computer, he came back with an 8-person hot tub. And I'm like, an 8-person hot tub? I'm like, Ricky, you just wasted the company's money buying a hot tub. He said, the computer prices were all wrong. You know, they were overpriced and everything like that, but the hot tub, it was a deal. Well, when we started our company, we were located in an old farmhouse in Auburn Hills. And we were working, you know, basically 90 hours a week. And our employees, we had 5 employees at the time. They were also working with us 90 hours a week with us. And you know what? That hot tub ended up being the best investment that we ever made for the company. Because when we needed a break, we all sat in the hot tub and we talked about what we were going to do when we made it big. You know, we fantasized about lottery winnings and everything. You know, that's what we did in that hot tub. And, you know, if I look at it today, I kind of won the lottery. You know, my company brings in quite a few $1 million a year that I'm responsible for spending. And it's kind of like buying a lotto ticket. You think about, what would you do with a lottery ticket, a winning lottery ticket? The first thing that people always say is, I'll pay off all my debt, right? And what the heck, I'll pay off the debt of some of my family members, right? Other thing they say is, I'll buy a new car, I'll take a great vacation. You know, and after you traveled the world, the last thing that you do if you won the lottery is you get bored, because you can only travel and take so many vacations. You start a business, right? You become a philanthropist, you donate the money. That's what people do when they win the lottery. Well, I didn't win the lottery, but I'm kind of doing all those things today. You know, I give my money to high school robotics competitions. In February, I took 17 employees for a week's vacation. Not a vacation, a week's business trip down in Orlando, Florida. Okay, it was a business trip, okay? But that was a lot of fun. You know, paying off debt. I remember one of the goals that I had in my company was, at the time I had 22 employees, and it was a personal goal that everybody in the company owned their own house, you know? And the really cool thing about that being the goal is I knew that those people bought their home with the salary that I helped them earn. You know, and I gave them the opportunity to earn that income. Again, being an entrepreneur is not all fun and games. You know, you do have to believe in yourself, and you do have to invest everything you own in it. You know, when I met my wife, I told her I was a compulsive gambler, and she said, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "Well, I gamble." She said, "How much?" I'm like, "I gamble it all." And as a business owner, that's what you're doing. Is you're gambling every day. You know, when you can't make payroll, where's the money going to come from? You're going to try to sell your friends and family or a bank or somebody as to why your vision is going to generate a return on investment. And that's what item number 6 on this, 6B, talks about. You know, don't ever expect anyone just to give you money. You know, a lot of times people that start their own company, they say, "Oh, I could start my company if only I had a big box of money to start it with." The reality is you don't need a big box of money to start a company. You just need a well-defined idea that makes sense not only to you, but more importantly, to the person who's going to buy your goods and services. Because if someone believes in your vision as much as you do, the money will flow. Money comes out of the woodwork. Look at Google. There was no brick and mortar there, and look how much they sold that company for. Because everyone believed in the Google business model. Any other questions? All right, definitely sign. You guys have to get on your senior projects. I wish you the best of luck in the home stretch here at Lawrence Tech. Don't feel uncomfortable about coming back here and not knowing anybody. If you find yourself 10 years out of school and you want to reconnect with the university, the best place to start is the placement office. I'll be glad to see you. Don't be surprised if none of the students want to talk to you, because nobody ever talks to us old people when we come back to the campus. But we enjoy coming back here. Stay connected, read the newsletter, and don't take yourself off the mailing list. Lawrence Tech is a great place. It's a great foundation. And with the degree that you walk out of here with, you could do anything you want. And I would strongly suggest go get yourself incorporated today and start your own business. Because it's always good to have a business waiting in a desk drawer for it to execute when you have the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, I think Dave will stay around for some questions if you want to ask him afterwards. Otherwise, we're all set. And make sure you sign in here, okay? Well, that's very, very interesting. You really gave them some very good food for thought, really. Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, but we might actually, in today.